Hello to everybody in the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection hearing room, and hello to folks joining us through Teams. My name is Frank McLaughlin. I manage the Office of Brownfield and Community Revitalization in the Contaminated Site Remediation Redevelopment Program. Welcome to everybody here. Welcome to those joining us through Teams. We have a packed agenda today. And first, I'd like to introduce the Assistant Commissioner of the Contaminated Site Remediation Redevelopment Program, David Hames. David and I have been toiling at the department for maybe too long and have the scars to prove it. And he's got much better hair than me, so I don't know how he's how he has retained his hair with all the other scars and hard work we've done over the years. But it's great to have David here to kick us off and give us some updates about what the program is doing right now. David, if you have a question, please come up to the microphone because we have folks at home who are interested in your thoughts. So when you have a question, you're going to use the microphone. For those folks at home, please type in your questions, and we're going to try to get to all questions here and also online. For those at home, please keep your microphone muted. Camera off would probably be better until you have a question that we're trying to interact with you on. To request the opportunity to ask a question, please enter your name and affiliation in the chat box. When called to speak, you may unmute yourself, and if you would like, turn on your camera. Sorry, I'm reading the rules, but I want to make sure everybody understands our online etiquette, our hybrid situation here. And when you finish speaking, please remute yourself and turn off the camera. And if you don't, Rachel or Jamila will remind you in a friendly way, or Tyrone. So with the housekeeping done, I'm going to pass it back to my boss, or my boss's boss, David Hames, the Assistant Commissioner for the Site Remediation, well, the former Site Remediation Program was the Contaminated Site Remediation Redevelopment Program. And we're going to talk about redevelopment as well as site remediation.
Thank you, Frank, again. So, as Frank has said multiple times now, my name is David Hames. I'm the Assistant Commissioner for Contaminated Site Remediation and Redevelopment here at the DEP. Glad to see everybody here. Glad to see so many former site remediation faces in the crowd. Hi, Bill. I'm happy to be here, talk about some of the accomplishments from last year, 2023, and to kick off this first Brownfield meeting for Brownfield Roundtable meeting for 2024. Probably the biggest accomplishment we had in terms of the Brownfield program last year was the relaunch of the Brownfield Development Area Program. Commissioner LaTourette announced this on October 30th last year. He was, I believe, up in Sayreville, the old NL Industries facility. I was the geologist. Anything wrong there in the groundwater, that's my fault. I was the geologist back in the day. But again, this is a tremendous program. It's very beneficial. It's a voluntary partnership that comes with this designation. The benefits that you get, you'll have a single point of contact from our Office of Brownfield and Community Revitalization, who will assist directly with all your brownfield development efforts. There's the formation of a BDA steering committee that will include DEP staff, municipal officials, local stakeholders, and LSRPs, the licensed site remediation professionals, that will all assist in expediting the investigation, remediation, and redevelopment activities. There's $5 million per calendar year in hazardous discharge site remediation fund grants that municipalities can apply for investigation and remediation. There are HDS RF matching grants of 75% for remedial actions independent of the future land use. And you get the benefit of coordination with other state agencies, federal agencies, and other partners to bring in technical and financial resources to support these local redevelopment activities. Why it's important is economic development for the municipalities that are involved. These brownfield sites that have been laying fallow for years or are underdeveloped and underutilized. They get rehabilitated and create thousands of jobs and millions of dollars in tax rateables for towns across New Jersey. Environmental restoration and enhancements. That's my priority really is, getting the environment clean, making the environment safe, health and safety of the citizens and the environment itself. Brownfields get repurposed for open space. They can get repurposed for flood mitigation, waterfront access, improved tree canopy. I'll be honest, that's one I rarely think of. I'm so involved with looking down and getting things cleaned up, I don't look up often enough. One of these facts Frank's pointed out to me, 553 acres of open space have been created in New Jersey through the BDA program. Sustainable development. Brownfield development is the most sustainable development, and it's great for New Jersey. Rather than cutting down more trees and taking away green fields, we're repurposing these brownfield sites that are already developed and putting them back to beneficial use. EPA estimates that for 1 acre of brownfield use, you're saving over 4.5 acres in green fields, and that's a tremendous savings. Redevelopment of brownfield sites is also substantially reduces stormwater runoff by an average of 47 to 62% versus a greenfield development. Again, you already have that land that's been paved over or whatever, rather than taking down more trees and taking out more open space. And it's also better for the air and quality of the planet, as residential vehicle miles traveled are reduced by 25 to 33% when you redevelop on a brownfield rather than opening up a greenfield. To date, the BDA program has transformed over 1,000 acres of blighted brownfields into productive reuses that create stronger, fairer communities and in benefiting local, regional, state, and global environment with lower carbon economic growth. In 2023, I'm moving on now from BDAs. In general, in 2023, we put out over $18.5 million in HDSRF recommendations to the Economic Development Authority. DEP estimates that for every $8 of, for every $1 of HDSRF money, over $8 are spent through private and other public sector funds. So that's, again, if we put out $18 million, somebody can do the math for me and multiply that by 8. And that's additional, thank you, Frank. And that's additional monies that were spent. Not sure if I don't know if that's right, but I'll just say thank you anyway. One of the BDA stories I'd like to highlight from last year that I had the opportunity to participate in is in Perth Amboy, the Perth Amboy BDA. And this was established in 2007. It entails 15 sites covering over 300 acres in the city of Perth Amboy. They were mostly heavy industrial sites ranging from lead and metal smelters to steelmaking facilities, petroleum terminals, and shipping operations. DEP Office of Brownfield and Community Revitalization provided over $8 million in HDSRF grants, utilized a $14 million settlement, and helped attract tens of millions of dollars in other funds, private funds, to remediate these challenging sites. The one that I went to was along the Arthur Kill, right below the Outer Bridge crossing. It was a warehouse development, and it's going to be providing thousands of jobs for the citizens that live in right there in Perth Amboy. I'm trying to remember how long they said the lines were when they first had the hiring days for that, and it was the enthusiasm that I saw from the city officials and from the residents in that area. It's a tremendous feeling. Again, I kind of sit in my ivory tower here and don't get to see that often. And going out and seeing these, I went to a few of these last year, and again, it's really a worthwhile thing to see.
Press the button, the light will flash green.
Yeah, Dave, that site will be remediated, will be redeveloped and ready to go in the spring of this year. It's on pace. 80% of which is already done.
Great. Thank you.
Will David be invited back?
Absolutely.
Oh.
Well, now we'll have 2 shovels. Nearby is Thomas, I want to make sure I get the name correct, Thomas Mundy Peterson Park, and that's named in honor of the country's first African-American voter. And that park opened in 2021 to serve local and county residents and the Middlesex County Vocational School with much needed recreational facilities and waterfront access to the Arthur Kill. I'll be honest, I grew up on Long Island. My parents still live out there. So I used to take, now that the Goethals has opened up, it's a much easier ride for me. It's safer. But I used to go over that outer bridge every time I went up to Long Island to see my folks. And again, it's just great to see that area is being developed and put back into productive use. Moving on from this work that Frank's involved with the brownfields, other work that we're doing in contaminated site remediation redevelopment is we're addressing remedial action permits. And I know that probably also can play in for development strategies and getting those permits out so the sites can move on. And what we're calling the Remedial Process Improvement Initiative, or RPII. So I'm just going to say that because it's quicker. So RPII is a collaborative effort between the department, LSRPs, the regulated community, and other interested stakeholders to further improve and streamline remediations in the state, and specifically those that are being overseen by licensed site remediation professionals. That group first met last February, so a year ago. We've had several meetings since then, and again, working on streamlining the remediation process through LSRPs. 3 work groups were formed through that process. One of those is a process for how we're discussing our comments when we receive reports and we send information back to LSRPs and responsible parties, the comment letters, the deficiency letters, and technical disagreements. Per that work group's request, we have reconstituted the technical review panel. And that would be where LSRPs and responsible parties can meet with subject matter experts from the program, from the department, and understand, trying to have an understanding, a meeting of minds as to getting these disagreements taken care of and moving these cases forward. We are also developing guidance and training for LSRPs on the importance of documentation and avoiding some common mistakes. A lot of times, some of the hiccups we have can get ironed out relatively easily. And again, it's just how we're communicating back and forth. Some of the trainings that they're working on are tracking areas of concern and presentation of data, and remedial action permit applications, making sure we get the information we need when the permit application comes in so that we can get those permits processed and again, move the sites along. In order to close a case, you need to have a permit in place, then the LSRP can issue the final document, then transactions can move through, properties can transfer. So again, the permit's kind of the last step, and that seems to be a bottleneck as well, and we're trying to work our way through that. I have a little bit more to say on that in a few minutes. And then doing a bit of a self-evaluation on what we look at when we do our inspections and reviews. Do we dive too deep? Are we looking for the right things? What information can we get out there so that for the information that we need to see, LSRPs and RPs know to send that information in with the reports. A big one, as I've already said, is the remedial action permit backlog. And we're doing what we can to try and get rid of that backlog. It is absolutely a priority for me, Commissioner as well, and for the program. So some of the changes we've made to date, we've moved some of the administrative processing that goes on in that bureau out to other bureaus that do more of the administrative processing, letting the permit writers focus on writing permits. That's what I pay them to do. That's what I want them to do. One of the big hangups we had was financial assurance. If you have a permit with an engineering control, you need to post a financial assurance, ensuring that there is money there to be had in case the state needs to take over and maintain that engineering control. It was easy for me to say it this way. It was a simple issue that in a lot of times that we were seeing is people were using the wrong form of the financial assurance mechanism, the wrong documentation. A handful of words were incorrect, but it meant all the world in terms of legal issues. And so we fixed our webpage and we've gotten out there on the talking circuit reminding folks, if you're doing FA, that's the financial mechanism you have to use. Don't use the one that says remediation funding source on it. But again, we've also brought in new staff that is their job. They work on the financial assurance for the remedial action permits. Originally, it was done in the permitting group. We just have a separate person now in the RFS unit working on financial assurance. Actually, we have 2 people doing that. We're developing some tools to assist the LSRPs. We had and I probably have at least part of this acronym wrong, the Effective Communication Collaborative Committee, the ECCC. I'm not going to say it twice. And again, this was mainly focused on permits. We created some flow charts so folks on the outside better understood the process for what we look at and who looks at what when a permit application comes in. And again, just trying to keep things moving more quickly, explaining that inspection review process as part of the permitting. We are still working on some checklists that are going to get finalized that again will help to make sure when you submit that permit application, you can check off and say, yeah, all the information the department needs is being submitted. We looked at creating a group of what we called prioritized permits, where we were hoping we could, take some of that backlog, look at them as priorities. They should all, we were hoping would fit neatly into a bucket, and we could move that group of permits through more quickly. That did not succeed as well as we were hoping to. So our last initiative, which we are hoping to get out the door literally this week, people on the phone, I hope don't quote me on that if it doesn't happen this week, is we're looking at another certification form for the licensed site remediation professionals to complete. They certify all the documents that come in. We already have a certification from them, but we're getting down to asking very specific questions that if those questions, you can check a box saying, yes, we did do this, or no, it doesn't even apply. Again, we can look at those forms and much more quickly get through things. We won't need to necessarily look at the reports and make sure the information we're looking for is there. Again, we're looking at it. The whole purpose of the LSRP program was that they're having that responsibility. Signing this checklist, that's, we're putting that back where it belongs. It shouldn't be the department opening up documents and looking at what the LSRP submitted. We're hoping to, again, hopefully get the soil certification form out this week. And once that's out on the street, we will then start finalizing the groundwater certification. We've been working on that one as well. That is everything on the permits. And the last thing I'd like to talk about are a regulatory update on the rulemaking that we're looking at for 2024. I think I said the same thing a year ago. I hope a year from now I'm not saying it a third time. We're looking at our SARA 2.0 rulemaking. SARA amendments went out way back in 2019, right before COVID. And we're trying to get our rules out on that. There'll be amendments to the to the administrative requirements for the remediation of contaminated sites, the ARCS rules, as well as amendments to the technical requirements for site remediation, the tech regs. Rule manager is Lynn Mitchell, and we're hoping for a proposal in the register sometime, in the next handful of months. Second rulemaking we're looking at are remediation standards. We have interim PFAS soil standards out there, per and polyfluoral alkyl substances, and we're looking at adopting those formally. So we will try to be getting a proposal out for that, hopefully by the summertime. And so we would have soil standards for, I'm not going to give the full names, PFNA, PFOA, PFOS, and GenX, which has a really funky name, so I'm not even going to try on that one. And actually, way back when we first posted our interim standards, we also have one hanging out there for methanol, which we will post, assuming there are not too many cases that are going to worry about a methanol soil standard. We are also looking at doing an interim groundwater quality standard for GenX. We have been working with Water Resource Management to accomplish that. They are assisting us on that part of the rule. So again, we're hoping to get that out sometime by summer and get that all adopted. Again, hopefully relatively quickly. A lot of that information has already been posted as part of when we put up the interim numbers. Alan Motter is the rule manager for that one. And that concludes everything that I had to say. So thank you all very, very much for having me here and listening to me. And if anybody has any questions, I'll gladly take them. Thank you.
We have any questions in our Trenton audience or our remote audience? Michelle Christina, how are you doing? Can you come? Tony, will you deliver Michelle the microphone, please? Well, I know you can.
I know, I missed it. instructions Tony was given. So EPA just released lead new criteria. How is DEP dealing with that? It's lowered substantially.
Yes, it went from 400 ppm to
To
parts per million to 200 parts per
Yeah.
million. I am meeting with staff, I think, this week, if not next week, but definitely it's this week or next week, to go over that. What are the implications? We do have an ability through our rules, through the remediation standards, we can implement that number as an enforceable standard as soon as we want to. But there are implications. We need to know the cases that are impacted, how many. There is one part that we've already been discussing is this is not an order of magnitude issue, and how will we address the fact that it's not an order of magnitude, but it's.
There's
but
been a lot of cleanups done to 400 and
Yeah. So we're going to be meeting with staff this week or next week,
Okay.
and then we're going to do a briefing with commissioner and figure out the path forward for it.
Thank you.
Terry or Shanine, did you want to weigh in on how EPA is not not particularly?
And I'm sorry, we have a quarterly meeting with EPA in March. I think it's March. Gwen said April, but I think it's March. And that's already like number one on the agenda after the introductions is going out over what EPA's plans are for that. And again, depending on what comes through with the commissioner, we may want to have something sooner. I mean, February is in a couple of days, so March is right around the corner from that. But we all do understand it's a very important issue. Fred Mumford, who used to work here, his mantra was there is no safe level of lead. So Michelle, getting back to your issue, that's what we need to worry about.
Tony, would you give Terry we used to have 3 microphones in here. Introduce yourself, Terry, if you would.
Sure. Terry Wesley, Brownfield Section Supervisor at EPA Region 2. I thank you, David, for those comments. Indeed, yeah, this is a hot topic for us, even in the EPA. They came out about 2 weeks ago, I think on the 17th. So there's actually, after this meeting in the afternoon, there's going to be discussion with several individuals in the CERCLA program, the Superfund program, community involvement coordinators, OSCs, even the Brownfields folks. We're getting together this afternoon and just having, just frank conversations and ability to talk about implications. I agree. It's not an order of magnitude that we're talking about, but it definitely is, as Michelle noted, there's going to be sort of things already in the pipeline with the higher standard in place, and how does all this sort of work together? So we're going to have those conversations this afternoon. And like you mentioned, the meeting coming up, we're all, gearing our folks up to have that conversation. So thanks.
Just as a side note, the reason I say order of magnitude is the way New Jersey statutes are set up. It's a multi-tiered process. If a case, a remediation, does not have an approved remedial action work plan, either through the department or an LSRP, the new standard takes effect immediately. There's usually, we have like a 2 to 3 month phase in if somebody's almost done getting ready to submit a report. But if a site remediation does not have a remedial action work plan approval, they're automatically getting in this case, we get the 200 number. Where the order of magnitude kicks in is if there is an approved work plan or they're finished, they have an approved final remediation document. This is where the math gets complicated. If there is an order of magnitude change from an old standard to a new standard, so it went from 400 down to 3. My math is horrible. It went from 400 down to 30. That would be an order of magnitude. They would have to look at, do they need to apply this new standard? Then there's the second step. They look at what remains on the property. If they had remediated to 200, they would be okay because 200 to 30 is not an order of magnitude. If they had cleaned it up to 350, they would have to do something because 350 down to 30 is an order of magnitude. So there will be a quiz at the end of the whole session here and see who remembers all that. So that is why I mentioned the order of magnitude issue. So closed cases, a case that had lead contamination that closed out 10 years ago and left 390 behind would not be a reopener for the department and by our statutes.
We do have an online question. Rick Schroyer, if you can unmute yourself and ask your question.
Good morning, David, Frank. Real quick, a couple comments, David. One is, I don't know the last time we got an approved RAW for a project in this process right now. Unless you're in a direct overhead case, then you might. Otherwise, we submit documents, but we don't get approvals. On the vinyl chloride proposed changes, can you sort of explain, right now, none of the analytical results that labs have been providing come to the new proposed standard, which would mean any case with a chlorinated substance, we would not be able to demonstrate that we cleaned up to that standard. And that
So
is
this
a 10.
These are the proposed groundwater quality standards that came out earlier this month?
Yes, David.
Okay. So unfortunately, I left those notes upstairs. So the Resource Management Program proposed put out a groundwater quality standard proposal earlier this month. I forget all the numbers. I had my notes. I forgot to bring them. But I guess the big contaminant that's dropping by multiple orders of magnitude is vinyl chloride. It's dropping into the parts per trillion range. So similar to PFAS numbers. Again, for cases that don't have the raw approval, again, whether it's from the department or from an LSRP, they will have to apply that new standard. For cases that have a raw going, a remedial action going, if they're doing a pump and treat or something like that, as long as they're capturing that vinyl chloride, that could be good enough. That may not require any additional work to be done beyond that. Cases with that are closed with classification exception areas, CEAs, and a permit, they may need to go out and do some additional delineation work to track down where that vinyl chloride might have gone to. Again, I forget what the existing number is, and with the new number, it had a 0.0 something, I believe. So it is substantially lower than the existing. But having said all that, again, this is a proposal. We will see what comments come in on it, and Water Resource Management will have final say on adopting that standard and whether it goes through. But playing it safe as the regulator, I would just warn folks: be prepared that will be the number, and know that a year from now, upon adoption, additional work may be required at site remediation sites.
I guess the point I'm trying to make, David, is that the laboratories aren't reporting down to that level, so nobody knows if they can meet that standard. So every case could be reopened.
So I'm assuming that if this is either a health-based number or a PQL-based number, and I mean, if the lowest it can get would be if the health-based number is lower than the PQL, the practical quantitation limit, they would still need to be able to meet. In order for us to propose this as the standard, the labs would have to be able to achieve that PQL. Beyond that, I'd tell you have to go to the Water Resource Program and ask them how they develop the number.
Well, it is based on the PQL.
If it reopens
and
cases,
right now,
it reopens
the PQL
cases.
isn't there.
Say that again, please.
Yeah, sorry, David. Right now, the laboratory is not reporting this PQL level that proposed by DEP. So none of them have been reporting down to that level to date.
Okay.
I think the regulations require that the labs can get to a number that's defensible. So sometimes they've taken the PQL and I think have multiplied it if that's not a reliable number, right? There's sometimes it's the PQL and sometimes I think in the past it's been somewhat above it, but we can only regulate what can be reliably detected. So as David said, the practical quantitation limit will be effectively a standard if the health-based standard can't be reliably met consistently in laboratories. So, and again, water quality management or water resources management, is leads this effort. So we're taking the lead from them.
And we're not developing the number. We're just going to use the number as the remediation standard. I'm hearing what your questions are, Rick, and your best bet is to put them into a formal comment document and send them on into WRM as part of this rulemaking effort, and they'll address it during the comment period or the response period. Sorry.
I will. Thank you. Could I ask one more comment, please? Is there any?
If Rachel allows, go ahead.
I was going to say we're pretty over on time, so we're going to.
Rick, last question.
Yep, last question. Thanks.
It's a comment, David. Is any of the regulations that are coming out and the procedures ever look at what the result is on cost to do remediation? The air permitting, PFAS for soil is going to be over $600 a sample, and this vinyl chloride. Any of these processes being considered if economically to be able to do a complete cleanup?
It's an economic impact statement is required in all rulemaking. So yes, the economics are looked at.
Thank you.
You got it.
And for anyone else who has questions, we do have an open discussion at the very end, so we can take your questions at the end.
David, thank you so much for your presentation, and you can take your leave if you'd like. Thank you.
Thank you again very much.
The floor is yours, Rachel.
Hi, everyone. I'll make this brief. So my name is Rachel Sopper, and I'm an HDSRF coordinator. HDSRF stands for the Hazardous Discharge Site Remediation Fund and is known as the State Brownfield Fund. And today I'm just going to give you a really brief update on the status of the fund. So as far as staffing, we have 2 full-time HDSRF coordinators and 2 part-time. So there's a lot of training going on, and there's a lot of excitement in the HDSRF program right now. So at this moment, well, as of last week, right now, the uncommitted balance in the fund is about $64,737,924. So we are extremely well funded at this time. It's too early to give a summary of what we have approved in Q1. So I'm just going to give a little update of our approvals from last year because we did not have a roundtable at the end of last year. So no one got to hear this. So our total recommendations last year were about $18.6 million. We're very happy with that, but we hope to get out more money this year. And since this is a BDA themed roundtable, just thought this would be useful for everyone to know. Since the inception of the BDA program, we have approved over $191 million for our BDA communities. And speaking of grants, I was asked to provide a little update here, and this is from the Community Investment and Economic Revitalization Program. There is a grants and loans survey that's being mailed out to municipalities, and if you would like to fill out that survey, the department is trying to get feedback on grants and loans that DEP has. And so we will put a link in the chat, and so if you would like to fill that out, we would be very appreciative. And then I think we're going to save our questions for the end in the interest of time.
Thank you, Rachel. We're going to go right to our EPA friends.
No, thank you so much, guys.
Our guest choice here. You can.
There we go. Okay, so a couple of things. Perfect. Thank you so much. And just for everyone's benefit, going through this, I believe this presentation will be provided to everyone, so don't need to copy anything or take a screenshot or anything. As well as all the links that are there are active, so just listen and get your questions ready if need be. Okay. So let's start off. Next slide, please. Just some general 3 major topic areas: funding, of course, technical assistance, and guidance and rulemaking activities that are underway. And thank you so much, David, for taking one of those slides away from me. Next slide, please. So show me the money. Next slide. So we're very excited, of course, with the infusion and injection of the bipartisan infrastructure law funds. That's $1.5 billion over a 5-year period. This has handsomely increased the amounts that we have per grant and the number of grants we've awarded. Just want to give you some updates quickly here on the FY24 Brownfield Job Training Grant Program. Our esteemed regional Brownfield Job Training Coordinator, Shanine, is right here next to me, so if I goof up, she will correct me. But we have recently selected, and we're in the process of awarding 2 $500,000 grants for Brownfield Job Training. One's going to be upstate in the area of Herkimer County, the Workforce Development Board of Herkimer, Madison, and Oneida counties, and Utica, as well as the Research Foundation of CUNY at the City College of New York. The photo below was taken actually last year when we attended a previous training event, and you'll see Congressman Espelot is in there along with several of us. I'm in the back with my head shining. So thank you so much. Next slide, please. I know folks are probably interested in knowing where things are at right now. This is the bulk of the program that we have, our major grants. Currently, over the past year, we have the multi-purpose. It's a combination of assessment and cleanup programs. So those 3 are announcing. For FY25, there's going to be the switch, multi-purpose switches over to revolving loan fund. I guess I'm clicking. Is that okay? So in terms of where we are right now is, with the funds that I mentioned that have come into the program, they really have increased the amount per grant. Folks may recall, if you were around back in, say, 10 years ago or plus, cleanup grants were only coming in at $200,000, maybe up to $300,000 a piece. They now go up to $5 million. So it's sufficient enough for like a small scale project to fully cover everything. So we're very excited about that. But right now we're in the process of reviewing the applications. They closed back in November, and the selection process, I think, we should be over sometime around late spring. So around that time, look forward to the national announcements of those 3 major grant programs. Next slide, please. This is really for the benefit of New Jersey DEP. As they know, they have submitted funding for us. This is really to EPA to support the work here in Frank's group. One thing also noted is that with bill funding, the amount has increased per recipient. That now goes up to $1.8 million on an annual basis. So I know Frank has made sure for every dollar identified that they've covered what they could to see if they could get those funds. So we're going to be in the process of working with headquarters in other regions for identifying how much per recipient. But we really are once again noting that with the bill funding, it has increased the amounts that we've provided for the states and tribal governments. Next slide, please. So open funding opportunities. For those who have revolving loan fund grants, I'm not sure how many folks here in the room. Looking around, I know Michelle Christina will probably be on top of this, but one of the things that we do annually is that we have what's called supplemental funding. If you have a revolving loan fund program grant in place, and if you have some viable projects, we can actually supplement that grant and increase it over the basis. And even go up to about 15 years, these are revolving loan fund grants. And as of right now, once again, the amount that we can provide up to $5 million per award. So once again, a significant amount per recipient. The beauty, of course, with the bill funding, and please forgive me if I keep saying bill, but it has taken away the no cost share requirement. Typically, that would have been a 20% cost share, but that has been taken away. So it's just total amount provided as is. Next we have under that is, I can't even read it. Thanks so much, Shanine. So for those recipients out there who may have experience in really running a revolving loan fund grant program. There's several of them out there that we know of, particularly in Region 2. If you feel as if you want to share that experience with others and really helping others who are coming out the gate with RLF programs, there's a grant now really that's going to be in place for that sort of recipient to be a technical assistance provider to help others in terms of starting up their programs. So that's right now open. It's going to close on March 1st. Also failed to note for the revolving loan fund supplemental, that closes on March 15th. Next slide, please. So with all this great, funding we got, the question is, wait a minute, guys, you guys throwing a lot of money my way. What do I do with all that? I'm just trying to get out the gate. So God help is pretty much, the right thing we want to showcase here regarding technical assistance. If you won't mind, the next slide, please. For folks here around the room who may know of EPA's targeted brownfield assessment program, we have a contractor on board. They come on board to help and do one thing and one thing only: provide free of charge environmental site assessment work for particular targeted strategic sites that you may have, phase 1s and phase 2s. And so that is really to note for folks here. I think it goes up to maybe about $100,000. Don't quote me, that's not exact, but that's about the amount we put per site aside, and if the need be for continuing on from a phase 1 to a phase 2. And I have, of course, the link there to the TBA coordinator, and that's your Casa de Jesus at the bottom. Next slide, please. Land revitalization. So this sort of is a sort of a niche that we have. We talk about the grant programs that are out there. Sometimes you may just need a little something in between the grants. Or you may have an area where we're not funding it necessarily, but something like designing, right? Really working with folks doing conceptual design, really, particularly for nonprofits who may not know how to start this whole process. Even doing a market analysis. Those are the type of things that the Land Revitalization Technical Assistance Program could come in and help support. Once again, at no cost to communities. Stuff is free, folks. Just contact. And as you note down the bottom, Sadira Robles, she's our LR, Land Revitalization Coordinator for Region 2. Her link there for email is there provided. Next slide, please. Now, there's a whole bunch of stuff. I'm not going to go into details. Once again, everybody has these slides. But what we've come out the gate here, again, because of Bill, is a lot of funding to help support entities, groups, states, recipients in brownfields. And this is sort of a couple of things. We have, of course, our wonderful TAB program, the Technical Assistance to Brownfields. NJIT serves as that provider for Region 2. They're going to be working with us for the next couple of years till 2028. They just got a large grant, I believe $5 million, helping us over the course of those years. There's also the land banking strategies. Now, I know in New Jersey, the law passed a few years ago. I think Newark is the only one currently with the land bank. So we're seeing, but with that being said, there's a lot of other land banks. New York has many of them in place that actually have been very successful in obtaining EPA brownfield grants. So we're hoping the same in New Jersey. So this is sort of a strategy, once again, that's been put forth, helping folks to learn more about land banks and sort of how they can come in and help support some of the inventory work and moving them past into assessment and redevelopment. So that's in place for 2027. The Center for Community Progress, based in, I believe, don't quote me wrong, but I know it's Midwest somewhere. My apologies if I don't know exactly, but NJIT is going to be supporting them on the brownfield side. So that's great to know. We have someone who has experience is going to be supporting them. Anti-displacement strategies program. There's another one. Folks may know, like at a Superfund site, you get ready to go clean up and then people have to be relocated, right? So this talks about sort of understanding that, applying equity-centered and economically inclusive anti-displacement strategies. That's a tongueful there, but really it's learning more from the community and what, if any, and we believe there will be impacts associated with the displacement, how to ensure that that is done in a way that's respectful for the community, but at the same time, hopefully that also pans out to a better redevelopment project going forward. Next slide, please. Groundworks USA, there's several of them, of course, in New Jersey. They have a couple of technical assistance grant programs in place. Nonprofits seeking to reuse brownfields, once again, for those coming out the gate, particularly we've been working with states, of course, counties, towns, but nonprofits are now playing a more of an increased role in the grant program. So this is really to help them to better understand all the ins and outs of how to apply and moving your brownfield programs forward, integrating equitable development. That's actually coming to a close right now. May is where it's of this year. That's going to be closing up. Brownfield USA is also helping that regard. They're developing, a different set of different approaches for folks to consider for equitable development. They have a website there. You can learn more about it. And lastly, I know we don't have here federally recognized tribes, but still, the Technical Assistance to Tribes Technical Assistance Program is available out of Kansas State University for folks to be able to contact and to get assistance, even for state recognized tribes. Next slide, please. So, what's next? That's a lot about full, so let me just relax for a second. Next slide, please. So I don't have to say a word about this because David just mentioned it, and that is, with the updated source lead guidance that came out 2 weeks ago. One thing I want to note here, excuse me, in that sort of small third paragraph, screening levels are not cleanup standards. So really, this is really for internally for EPA to as it works forward and conduct the work in-house within the CERCLA and the RECWA corrective action programs. But it really is up to the states to determine what those standards are. And as noted, David has mentioned this now for the pathways that have coming up in the next couple of months. So we'll be definitely fine-tuned with that. But we are communicating, of course, on our side. And I know he mentioned there's an upcoming meeting with some of the senior leadership coming up soon. So we'll be sharing, materials back and forth. Next slide, please. And this could be my last one, I think. Yeah, this is so ASTM standards. This is the godfather of helping us, EPA, that is, in meeting our all appropriate inquiries rule out of the 2002 law that was passed, the Brownfield amendments to CERCLA. This really is a small case, that is, the ASTM standards that came out for forest land and rural communities. There are rural areas, of course, in New Jersey. So this is considered a tier 3 action. It's really in a low bar. But we just want to make folks know that this is going to be, underway, and hopefully in the next month or so, it's going to be posted in the Federal Register. Look out for it. But it really is not going to be major necessarily, because ASTM standards 1527-21 is the one that most folks use. This is really for more the rural communities of the state. So I think that could be it. Next slide, please. Oh, quickly, upcoming, yeah. So mentioned about all those funds coming out, right. We do this on an annual basis. So the next cycle coming out for Brownfield job training, and Shanine, please correct me if I'm wrong here, I believe it's the summer, right? Sometime in the summer. And it will be at $500,000 a piece. Not sure how much total for the program, but the grant amounts is that amount. As I noted, this will be this cycle here. It moves out, the multi-purpose and revolving loan fund comes back in. Those major grant programs will come out summertime, around the summer, fall. We're looking at around maybe September timeframe. And this year you can relax, and that is in terms of going to the National Brownfield Training Conference. There will not be one held this year. They'll be done next year. And as the question is, where is it at? I don't know. In Spanish, yo no sé. So any way you want to ask me, I'm going to let you know. We don't know yet. That's closely held to the breast. But once we do know, we'll let folks know.
Tony?
Let me move on. Any questions? Of course, we can save those till later on, right? Right, Rachel? Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Terry.
Appreciate it.
And you'll be around for questions later, or should we take them now for EPA?
Yeah. I'll be around, yeah.
You'll be around?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then we'll take them later.
Okay,
Thank you so much, Terry. We are going to take you want a 9-minute break to 10? All right. Well, I guess Rachel says 10, so she makes the rules. 10:41, we will reconvene. Thank you so much. So I'm going to provide a quick update of our Brownfield Development Area program. You heard earlier remarks from Assistant Commissioner David Hames, so I'm not going to repeat some of the information he provided. Next slide. On October 30th of this past fall, DEP Commissioner Sean LaTourette announced the reopening of the Brownfield, reopening of the Brownfield Development Area program. the Brownfield Development Area Program has been around since 2003, and it is a unique program actually in the country. It's an area-wide brownfields program where we designate, based on a proposal from our municipal partners, to work on brownfield sites within an area, normally a neighborhood-sized area. And to date, we've worked with 31. There were 31 brownfield development areas, now 29 in 27 municipalities across the state. The slide I'm showing here is an example of the very large and difficult and complex sites we take on. The picture to your on the left is the former National Lead site, a 418-acre site right at the foot of the Driscoll Bridge. If you have taken the Garden State Parkway from North Jersey to South Jersey, you're probably in Central Jersey right there, if there is such a thing. The governor says there's a Central Jersey, so I have to say there's a Central Jersey too. And that site sat fallow for several decades. One of the most largest site with varied contamination that I'm not going to go into, but these types of sites need constant attention by talented case managers like Tony Finley in the office, who you'll hear from later on our Perth Amboy success story. And Tony worked on the Sayreville Brownfield Development Area for over 15 years. Our hazardous discharge site remediation program, you heard from Rachel Stopper earlier, put $20 million on the table back in 2008, if my memory serves me correct. And that was one of the catalysts for realizing this vision of Sayreville's Riverton development that you see on the right, $2.5 billion mixed-use development over 2 miles of new frontage on the Raritan River, 55 acres of open space, 2,000 houses, I think 300 affordable houses, all on property that no one would touch except Sayreville and our local partners, DEP, New Jersey Department of Transportation put in a new exit on the parkway. That certainly was a great boost for that project. And these are the type of efforts that our office can assist municipalities in on these difficult sites like this former National Lead site. The 2 other sites in that brownfield development area are surplus sites. So when the cleanups are complete, and I understand they're not far from being complete, maybe we'll see some redevelopment on those other sites outside the former National Lead site. Next slide. A brownfield site and is a very broad definition. Any commercial or industrial property that is suspected to have had a discharge or known to have a discharge that is either vacant or underutilized. Now, underutilized is a bit of a term of art, but local municipalities determine land use, and they help us with that underutilized definition that's in our statute. A brownfield development area is a designation that we provide, an area-wide brownfields approach. For brownfield development areas, we'd like to see at least 2 contiguous sites. That doesn't mean there can't be other sites in that area as well, but at least 2 contiguous sites. And the boundaries of the brownfield development area are similar to the boundaries of a neighborhood. Now, some places are small and may not have multiple neighborhoods or multiple wards. So that's really up to the municipality, whether we're working in a similar neighborhood or not. So if cities like Newark, obviously, large cities, different wards, when you're working in the Ironbound, Maybe not the same as working in the South Ward or the North Ward, but smaller communities may not have distinct areas like that. So again, sites that are in that, at least 2 sites in a contiguous area and generally within the boundaries of a neighborhood or a similar area. Broad community support. We're going to expect you to demonstrate an application with a steering committee that's put together, letters of support, obviously a close working relationship with the mayor or the redevelopment authority and local leadership. And the last point about brownfield development areas, establish benefit to public health and the environment, which generally speaking, when you take blighted brownfields that are typically contaminated, maybe attracting other things in that neighborhood, that should be not a difficult one to establish. And we are going to be around for questions later if you have questions on Brownfield Development Area designation. And the implementing statute is the Brownfields Act of 1998. Next slide. You're going to hear more about some of the work we've done in Perth Amboy over the last 17 years. And we are here to support local municipalities. Perth Amboy has, as you'll hear in a few moments, has economic development goals, job creation goals, especially local job creation. They have open space interests. They have trail and connectivity interests. They have beautiful waterfronts along the Arthur Kill here, the Raritan River and Raritan Bay. And our office has supported different types of remediation and redevelopment to support that local vision. This is a picture of Thomas Mundy Peterson Park that Assistant Commissioner David Hames mentioned earlier. We have large warehouse projects. We have other projects for redevelopment in that city. So this is, and many of these very large and very challenging sites, similar to the, matter of fact, one of them is another national lead site in Perth Amboy. So, but again, we are following what the local vision for redevelopment and planning and open space creation and connectivity, whether it's Perth Amboy, Sayreville, or other cities in our brownfield development area. Next slide. So, and our support is, and our advocacy within the department is different in different municipalities. So this is a aerial view of our brownfield development area in Palmyra. Palmyra is a small, very strategically located borough right across from Philadelphia along the Route 73 corridor. And its 2 largest tracts of land were highly contaminated brownfield sites. One was a landfill, mostly a landfill, which is shown in the slide, and to the right was a former national amusement sites, which had unexploded ordinances and other things that kept interest parties away for many, many years. So our HDSRF program here as well provided grants, not only for standard investigations at brownfield sites or landfills, but also to locate and detonate, literally, unexploded ordinances that were found at this national amusement sites to the right. Today, those 2 sites, well, not today, but soon when the second warehouse opens and the affordable housing project gets done in 18 months, there will be 102 new units of affordable housing in Palmyra, 2 warehouses, roughly about 1.8 million square feet between the 2 of them on those fallow properties for decades. 36 acres of new open space, connectivity to the beautiful Palmyra Cove Nature Center, the Delaware River, Pensauken Creek. So in one shot, the small borough of Palmyra gets over 20% in new ratables, 102 new affordable housing units, 36 acres of open space, trails on their two most problematic properties. And again, our office, multiple case managers this time, but Tony Finley again, he's the star today. As a matter of fact, Tony did so much, he brought a developer that he worked with in Palmyra, in Perth Amboy, down to Palmyra. So not only did Tony clear the sites of ordinances and also helped with remediation, but he also brought a developer who had expert in warehouse development in Perth Amboy, showed him this site, and made the connection for the borough of Palmyra. So I'm not sure we can do that in every instance, but that's the kind of assistance that we give brownfield development area municipalities. Next slide. This is a map of our Somerville landfill and station brownfield development area that staff member Ron Wachowski over here has managed for, I don't know, 15 years, Ron? 15 short years, right, Ron? I mean, Somerville has unique visions too. They're a transit-oriented development. They need housing, they need open space, they need flood mitigation, a smaller borough, but these sites are just as important to Somerville as the sites I showed earlier are to Palmyra and Perth Amboy. This is Somerville's vision. We need housing, we have flood problems, we need to mitigate them, we need open space, we have a large landfill that needs to be closed. Now that landfill is open space, and well, if we can work out some snags with BPU, we'll have solar there soon, right, Ron? So, again, Somerville's vision. So in summary, a few benefits of a brownfield development area. This is a voluntary partnership. You want to work with us? We know we can achieve our mission in protecting human health and the environment while local municipalities achieve their vision of redevelopment and beneficial reuse of their fallow sites. Single point of contact with a talented case manager in my office, whether it's Tony Finley, Ron Wachowski, or my other talented staff. Part of the brownfield development process, maybe the most important, is formation of a steering committee. Steering committees provide input, guidance, technical expertise, sometimes funding to make these projects better. We have really talented people working alongside DEP and the municipality in this process, and they're in it for the long haul, as DEP is, and of course the municipality is. So formation of a diverse and talented steering committee is a great asset and also provides continuity and continued vision throughout the brownfield development area investigation, remediation, and redevelopment process. As David Hames and Rachel mentioned earlier, each brownfield development area municipalities are eligible for up to $5 million in HDSRF grants per year. One of the most attractive benefits to municipalities is the HDSRF program provides 75% matching grants for all properties, for remedial action for all properties in the brownfield development area. So whether you're doing open space, housing, warehousing, or whatever the municipality's vision is, we will support it with remedial action money. Again, independent of land use. And one of our benefits, as it's been touched upon too, is our coordination with within DEP programs, these various permitting programs, other funding programs, and our federal partners. We have county partners in brownfield development areas, so multiple levels of government working together for a common goal of beneficial use of brownfield sites. And I mentioned the bottom remarks when I started. I don't know why, but again, $23 million, I think, in total to Somerville. In addition to things like, and Ron helped out with this, access to our New Jersey Water Bank and Environmental Infrastructure Trust to do some of the, to match our remedial action money and to do some additional work with respect to this green seam and other stormwater management improvements done in Somerville, which again is worried about flooding along the adjacent Raritan River. So this is another great brownfield development area success story. Next slide, please. So here are some websites. If you have staff, Rachel and Jamila Harris will be speaking in a little bit about the brownfield development area applications, but if you have any questions, please contact me personally. We also have a website where you can leave questions, and here are some of the documents that are on our website. Appreciate the time, and we're looking forward to working with new municipalities later this year. I will save the questions for later. I would like, since we're a little behind time, and of course that's partly my fault, but we have a treat today. We are going to highlight one of our successful brownfield development areas in Perth Amboy. And we are very lucky to have the Director of Economic Development for Perth Amboy, Tashi Vasquez, to speak to us. And also, and having access to leadership like Tashi and Mayor Kaba is really important when you have to pivot and when there's hurdles and we have to convene about how we're going to approach certain hurdles. My former boss and colleague at DEP, Bill Linder, is familiar with that at the 2nd Street Park site, which our friends at EPA Removal Action Program are helping us with when we ran into some flammable white phosphorus after trying to dig the PCBs out. Anyway, we're not going to get into a long story about that, but sometimes we have to huddle and reconvene and take it in a new direction. So it's really important to have close working relationship with the leadership in his municipalities and for us to hear the vision of people like Tashi Vasquez, which you'll hear in a moment. And I also wanted to point out a second speaker, Will Kurtzenberger, from this company Topology. They're located in Newark, and Topology has helped Perth Amboy for many years from planning, park development, and they are one of the secret ingredients that make good projects great. And I'm going to let Will fill in that. And I'm going to introduce Tony Finley. Tony, do you want to take it from up here or back in your seat? Okay, thank you, Tony.
Good morning, everybody, and thanks for coming. I am the Tony Finley that Frank talks so glowingly about. I want to take one moment to recognize Bill Leonard. He ran this office for many years, and he really put us on the right track. So I want to take the time to do that. But what do we want to do in the next segment? We want to talk about Perth Amboy, the success story, the good things that happened there, how instrumental the BDA has been to helping them get their vision on the way and achieved. So what we're going to do is the format is going to be Tashi's going to come on. She's going to talk a little about how important the BDA designation was to help her in terms of getting the brownfield redevelopment and some of her economic goals on the way and to achieve them. And then Will's going to come along. Will is from Topology. He helps the city of Perth Amboy with their planning, and he also is going to talk about the importance of how the BDA designation has been very significant and important to helping him achieve his planning initiative for the city. And then I'm going to come along at the end, and I'm going to wrap it up and talk specifically about the BDAs and what are some lessons we learned, what are some advantages, why it's the best thing in the world to try to get. So with that, let me turn it over to Tashi. Tashi, again, let me just say one more thing. She's the Director of Economic and Community Redevelopment, as well as the Part-Time Board Redevelopment Agency Executive Director. She's a longtime Part-Time Boy resident, so all of those things really work really well in our favor in terms of getting the things done what we wanted to get done in Part-Time Boy. So with that, Tashi, can you take it away?
Sure thing. Good morning, everyone. Still morning, right? You guys hear me all right? All right? You guys hear me okay?
Yep. Go ahead.
All right. Sounds good. All right. So, as Tony mentioned, Tashi Vasquez, the Director of Economic and Community Development. I'd like to note that Mayor Cava saw a need to combine or bring services to a more centralized location, in that the commissioners appointed me the executive director of the redevelopment agency too. And as Tony mentioned, it's just been really beneficial to have the redevelopment agency within the walls of City Hall or right next to administration. Before me, Annie Hindenlang and Will Kosenberger did an amazing job. So not to discredit anything that they did, but I think that just in terms of administration and moving projects forward, having that combined title has been really helpful in the past year. I've been with the city for 7 years now, in this role for only 1 year, and resident of Perth Amboy. So I see firsthand what our city was, what it currently is, and where it could go. Just to jump right into the presentation, I'm sorry. We'd like to first talk about the importance of the BDA, and you've heard it all morning: funding, technical support, and advocacy, all leading to the success and development of our brownfields, and then starting that cycle all over again. I will say that it's not just one project and then starting the cycle again. I think right now we have at least 10 projects opened, where the BDA has provided us with funding, technical support, advocacy, and success. So what I'm going to do now is talk a little bit about our redevelopment and economic goals, which were mentioned. I think that a lot of the things that I'm going to say this morning have been mentioned, but I think I'll take a deeper dive into them. Mentioned in our Focus 2020 or redevelopment plan, our goals include remediating contaminated sites. Oh, I am so sorry. I did not update these. So never mind the comments underneath. Our goals are to create ratables, revitalize the city, create jobs, and fund public improvements, all of which we have already seen through some of our completed projects and continue to see in the projects that are coming. Para by numbers, we actually have 21 projects in negotiation or development. Not all of them within the BDA, but I would say at least 70 to 80% of them are negotiations and development. Those projects are currently either in negotiation or development. Over $800 million in private investment, 300 acres of brownfields being remediated, and 2,000 new jobs expected within the next year. Millions of dollars in tax revenue. That just, speaks for itself. I'll go a little deeper into some of our projects. The Elm Street Logistics Project, which is the home now to Home Depot warehouse. It was formerly 90 acres of highly contaminated site. 1 million square feet of warehousing and distribution is what has been created. $100 million in investments. 400. This was an old presentation that says 400 to 600 potential jobs. That warehouse is fully employed, and about 80% of the employees are from right here in Perth Amboy that walk, bike, or drive into the facility. New public amenities that came out of this project include reconnecting the street grid, green infrastructure, and separation of our stormwater for treatment, improved traffic regulations and circulation. So as Tony mentioned earlier, while our main goal is to remediate the property and to bring in ratables, we're also meeting a bunch of our other remediation goals. And you'll see that in every project that we're hitting. And Billy will talk a little bit, or Will Krosenberger, I'm sorry, will talk a little bit more about the planning practices and goals that we have and how they're met in redevelopment. Borinquenier Park, which you also heard, we receive millions of dollars as part of being as being part of the BDA. We receive millions of dollars for the remediation of this site, $12 million in grant funds. 6 acres of contaminated land will be what I am excited to announce, a state-of-the-art park that will have, trails, shared barbecue space, skate park, splash water park for our residents, basketball courts, tiered seating, movie night screens. It's just amazing. I can't wait to see this project. And I won't go into all of the particulars that we've had to endure with this, but I'm excited to finally see it moving forward. And Tony and Joe and Will, when I'm done with the presentation, if you want to dive a little bit deeper into some of the things that we encountered and how the BDA has assisted us in moving forward, I welcome you to do that. Eport 2, which is the site that the folks visited for the groundbreaking. I know you have your shovel. You won't get a second shovel for this project, but you will be invited to cut the ribbon. We're looking late spring, early summer for the doors of this project to open. 70 acres of highly contaminated property, 10,000 containers removed, 1.1 million square feet of warehousing and distribution, $100 million of investment, 300 to 500 potential jobs, improvements for existing local business, improved roads and sidewalks. We do have a housing development with over 1,000 units, about maybe 5 to 10 minute walk from this site. However, our residents did not have the connectivity to get to this site. So through these redevelopment negotiations, the developer agreed to connect the entire length of Outer State Street and High Street to connect that residential area to this project. So we're really excited about that. Improve entrance to the city. You will know in another slide, you'll note that we're working on designating all of the entrances or gateways to our city as an area in need of redevelopment so that we can start really taking a deep dive into making sure that the entrance to our city is attractive. As you know, Pertambo is centrally localized. We are minutes away from 287, 440, the Turnpike, the Parkway. So this is where you want to have your industry, your warehousing. While others are, frown upon the development of warehouses, we welcome it. Number one, to develop those contaminated sites, and number two, to bring in the jobs that our residents definitely need. And there's a place for everything, right? We're not going to put residential, or we're not going to put a warehouse in the middle of our downtown or in prime real estate on our waterfront, but we are going to put it strategically in the areas that will benefit from it, while, taking into account what traffic and the environment needs, right? So they also worked on separation of stormwater treatment for our city. Gateway. This project has been talked about for many, many years, and I'm proud to announce that we currently have we finally have a redevelopment agreement. 43 acres of contaminated property with landfill, 471,000 square feet of warehousing. So this property is actually going to be broken down into 3 sections. The warehouse, in addition to the warehouse, the developer has agreed to clean, make pad ready the front portion of this property, or nearly 10 acres, and we'll give that over to us, the city, to do with what we would like to see done here. And I'm super excited about that because, as you know, this is literally the gateway to our city. The warehouse will be centralized, and along the river will have open space, trails, a gazebo, a high look point, that will all be turned over to the city when the project is completed. $54 million investment, 150 to 300 potential jobs. And again, the dedication of 9.4 acres of development ready land and 9.2 acres of open space. Improve roads and walkways, the entrance of the city, which I mentioned, and again, the separation of our stormwater treatment. You'll notice that is we repeat that in all of our projects, because as if you're familiar with Earth Amboy, you know that is one of our priorities. Here is a quick map that I thought captures a nice piece of nice aerial view to understand what we're looking to do here in the city of Perth Amboy. This area here highlighted in red is the redevelopment area that I just recently spoke about, or the Gateway project, the open space, the warehouse, and the front land that's going to be dedicated to the city. Further to the side, you'll see Patterson Street, or what will become about 400 residential units. Also, this project is in our BDA. Across the highway, or across Route 35, this was formerly or currently is a tank farm that has been purchased. And recently, thanks to our redevelopment agency, the planning board, and our city council, has now been designated an area in need of redevelopment. We're working with topology and with the township of Woodbridge to create redevelopment plan to revitalize this area as well. About 35% of the project will be in Perth Amboy, the other 65% in Woodbridge. So we have a joint redevelopment agreement going on. Super excited to see what becomes of this project. Directly across from there, we have our DPW site, or our Department of Public Works site, that sits on a landfill. It's on a landfill that the city was responsible for closing up. We now have a developer who is going to purchase that property, close the landfill, build a cold storage facility, and also I can't even, the projects that they're going to take on for us are a litany of things, including moving our transfer station for our sanitation department, creating a new public works building, a new shooting range for PD, a new animal shelter, it just all of the projects that we had listed, and that developer is going to do that for us, with the biggest project being the closing of the landfill. That's basically our footprint. You'll see here the footprint of the BDA. We're going to be applying to add a couple new sites and close out some projects that, through the assistance of Joe and Tony, are completed. And I'll leave that to Joe and Tony to discuss further. And at this time, I'd like to invite Joe or Tony to continue with the presentation, and I'll be open to questions at the end.
Okay. Joe Hawkright is not going to be here today, so we're going to skip over that.
Sounds good.
Yeah, yes. Joe is the manager of the BDA. He's like our steering committee chair. He's been with the project since the beginning. He was the gentleman, or he was the folks. He and some other folks came together and put together the BDA application that was successful with the designation, and he's been managing the project since its inception. He is, I think I credit him with a lot of the success of this BDA, because you need that kind of steering committee, that type of person who's going to take charge and just make sure all the milestones are being met, revised. and just guiding the BDA through. And that's what is required to make the BDA really successful. And I think Rachel and Jamel is going to talk about the steering committee and what is required to put together the BDA application. But one of the things I want to make sure that I'm very clear on in terms of a BDA being successful is the manager. Just like in anything else, you need a manager who's going to manage it, who's going to make sure all the we on task, that we whatever milestones we establish, that we on task to getting it done, and if we need to revise some of the dates, that we revise it. If we need to leverage other funding or other things to make it work, he's the one who's going to make it work, and he's the one who really runs things down. He's the one who calls me regularly and said, Tony, we got to get this done. This permit is hanged up here. What could we do? So that's the kind of person he is. Joe is he's very knowledgeable. He's got a scientific background. He's a geologist, and he's really passionate about that. And that's kind of what we need on the top front, in the lead, or just at the top, just guiding, just like in anything else. When you're managing something else, or you're the leader or something, you have to be there. You have to be compassionate about it. You have to be committed, and that's what Joe is. So that's what I think is one of the biggest reasons for the success of this BDA. And I think I manage several BDAs in the state, many, much more than I should be. But when I look back and I think about what makes it work, it's not only the municipal officials or folks like Tashi, who's passionate about what they do, and the planner, Will, and also even myself, the BDA project manager, but it's really the steering committee guy. He's the guy, because I'm so busy with so many other BDAs and got so many other things running. But he will call me and he will remind me, make sure that, hey, we got to get this done. We're going to be meeting. We're going to have another meeting this week, and we don't want to go to the meeting and we don't have answers. So that's what happened. Joe's not here, so I hope I kind of capture his role, and he's just the one who's leading the ship. Let me just put it like that. So with that, let's move on to the next presentation. Let it go to Will. I think this is me, but I'll come in later. So can you move ahead?
Right, so I think we're going to go, Will is next on the agenda. And so Tashi, if you want to stop sharing, I have Will's presentation here ready to go.
Okay.
Thank you, Tashi.
Thanks, Tash.
Thank you.
Okay, so let me just jump in for a few minutes while they get those technical issues resolved. Again, Will is from Topology. He's the city planner, so he works closely with Tashi on meeting some of the planning goals for the city, as well as working closely with us on the steering committee for the BDA.
Thank you very much, and good morning, everyone. As has been said several times now, my name is Will Kurzenberger. I'm a redevelopment planner with the planning firm Topology out of Newark, New Jersey. And I've been working in Perth Amboy in one capacity or another for about 10 years now. In front of you here is a map from our Bay City Transit plan. This map here from a document that plan produced back in 2015 that envisioned citywide revitalization through improved connectivity, creative placemaking projects, recreational and open space enhancements, and more. And I included this here just to demonstrate that since this plan's inception not too long ago, through the work of the BDA and our partners, we've been able to achieve much of what this plan has sought to accomplish. And I'll leave it up here as we go forward just to kind of work our way around the plan. I think it's a nice visual, but it's a big deal for in a city where around 30% of households don't own a vehicle. We've been able to add walkways and reconnect street grids, including what will be an unbroken waterfront promenade extending all along the entirety of the city's waterfront from the Victory Bridge down on the Raritan River to the Outer Bridge crossing across the Arthur Kill. And in a city with infrastructure that is about 100 years old in places, we've been able to separate out big portions of the sewer and stormwater systems. And in a city that by Green Acres standards has a deficit of somewhere in the neighborhood of 100 acres of open space per the last recreation element. We've been able to add over 35 acres to that roster since the time, like I said, that element was drafted. But Rachel, you can go ahead and move on. Just a little bit about my own personal planning philosophy this year. May be familiar to some of you, the social determinants of health. And in terms of talking about the quality of life for people that live in the communities we serve, a lot of attention is paid towards people's individual behaviors. Are they eating right? Are they getting enough exercise? Are they doing the things that we need to do? And we try to center our planning, our practices focus around setting the stage that allows these folks to live the healthiest lives that they can. Do they have access to these employment opportunities, to transit hubs, to recreational amenities and parks? Is the air that they breathe clean for them, the water around them, especially in a place like Perth Amboy that occupies such a special place environmentally, making sure that we're protecting the health of the surrounding environment, all very important. Rachel, you can go ahead and move on. So to take a look at some of the projects that we worked on with the BDA and how they've contributed to these metrics. The Gateway project, very significant project here that will be adding, in addition to its economic development contributions Tashi touched on before, and over 9 acres of development-ready open space towards the downtown, right along Smith Street to the north. It's also going to be generating over 9 acres of public open space with several passive amenities for folks to enjoy there with riverfront views, as well as new pedestrian connectivity from residential neighborhoods that had been cut off from a lot of the city's recreational amenities around the waterfront for decades. Next slide. This project here, Riverwalk Crossing, a significant residential project not too far from the Raritan River. It'll be giving back to the community over 2 acres of public open space with some active recreational amenities, as well as, in addition to those pedestrian connections, actually reintroducing two broken segments of the city's street grid, connecting down there to Riverview Drive, which is a very significant gain for the city. And you can go on to the next slide. The Elm Street Logistics Center. This is the former site of the Gerdau metal refinery site. Here, over 9 acres of public open space. I think there's over a mile of new pedestrian greenways that extend throughout the site, and it is a key component of that waterfront promenade, as I said, mentioned before, from bridge to bridge, that was previously a missing link as part of that network. More pedestrian connectivity from those residential neighborhoods to the waterfront amenities, and providing new amenities along that waterfront in the form of a new outdoor performance venue. You can see pictured here some very attractive and practical wayfinding signage throughout the site. I thought was worth including here as well. And an interesting example of historical reuse, as some of the original offices back from the Raritan Copper Works day repurposed as part of this project as a new satellite office for the city's Office of Recreation. Thank you. This project here, Brinkmanere Park project, has already been spoken at a bit. I suspect is going to be cited as a case study for years to come among environmental professionals, as what we first thought was going to be a fairly straightforward remediation process dealing with the PCBs on site from its history as a metal scrapyard. Started turning up unexploded ordnances and flammable soils once they were exposed to the atmosphere. Thankfully, this project is recognized as a high priority for both the DEP, who have invested several millions of dollars of funding through the HDSRF program and NRD program, and the US EPA now, who have taken pity on us and assumed responsibility for the remediation work here, given its complexity. And thanks to the assistance of all these entities, the city will be gaining a world-class waterfront park. It's over 6 acres and featuring a wide array of active recreational amenities. We've got basketball courts, a skate park, as well as some more passive and communal spaces as well for barbecues, or the memorial that will honor the Brinkmanere divisions for whom the park bears its name. Next slide. Thank you very much. This project here as well, another park project. This one done in partnership with the BDA and Middlesex County. Named after probably Perth Amboy's most prominent resident, Thomas Mundy Peterson, the first African American to cast a ballot after the passage of the 15th Amendment. 8.5 acres of public open space. It's great to see people out here using this park, featuring an array of athletic fields and waterfront walkways. And finally, Eport 2 project, that's the big warehouse now nearing completion of construction at the former Sarco site. Tashi mentioned before this large residential neighborhood right to the south of this that for well over a generation was disconnected from all of the city's infrastructure, at least in terms of pedestrian connectivity. As part of this project now, we'll be seeing over 4,000 feet of new sidewalk, complete with the seating and landscaping needed to make it attractive and compelling and used. Reconnecting again a part of the city that had been disconnected for at least a generation. This also came with some very significant contributions for open space and additional public safety measures. So all of these projects here, again, I would say a big testament to the success of our BDA, which is continually now completing projects, getting them off the books, and welcoming new projects. It's a pretty easy sell for us that with that track record of success to get new developers who want to invest in the city on board, and getting the city to a place where significant properties hopefully no longer lead that public assistance, and that investment is ready to come in for the benefit of our residents. So that's all for me. Thank you very much, Rachel, and Tashi or Tony. I'll turn it back over to you. Thank you very much, everyone.
And being a part of this our virtual Brownfields Roundtable. What I'm going to do now, I'm going to kind of be like the closer. I'm going to come in. I'm going to tell you why the BDA is a value, the benefits, how it works, and things like that nature. And then I think Rachel and Jamel is going to come and they're going to talk about you know, what you have to do to get a BDA. So with that, okay, so I'm ready to go. So again, I'm the person. Okay. Can you guys hear me now? Yeah. Okay. Thanks. Let me put this off then. I am the person from our office that is assigned to the Perth Amboy BDA, as well as to a number, probably a lot more than I could manage, or I should be assigned to in the state of New Jersey. But it's all fun. Let me just talk real quickly. I have like over 30 years of experience working on brownfields projects. I worked on a wide range of brownfields projects. I worked on remediation and redevelopment of parks, some open space, a lot of commercial and industrial and residential projects. I've also worked on a mixed-use redevelopment, and what I'm being the one that Frank talked about earlier, the Sayreville BDA. It's one of the most. It's one of the. It's I think it's $1.2 billion remediation redevelopment projects. It's huge. It sits right on the Roundtable River. Wherever I looked in that project, I found contamination. I found all the conventions you could think about. And we had PCBs, lead, and it was very, very complex. So this site has been on a national lead project, and it's been probably going on for about 100 years. It used to be the engine of the city. We also encountered radiological contaminants, which was a lot bigger and deeper and wider than we anticipated. It was very complex. It probably increased the cost of the remediation as well as the complexity of remediation by probably about 50%. So that was a big unknown that we came about. I also worked on marina and ferry projects. I also worked on a natural gas power plant in Woodbridge. I think it was the first that was authorized in the state for a long, long time. That was a nice project in Woodbridge VDA. I also worked on landfills projects with UXOs, munitions, and as I stated, projects that is contaminated radiologicals. That's a whole nother ballgame. Our office is a small office, but we have highly trained and experienced folks in here. We have folks that have expertise in landfills, funding, community planning, enforcement. We have folks that have experience in inspection and review. And we also had, at one time, we had an expert in landfills too, but he went back to his office. He came in and then left at a much more lucrative position. So now I believe he's a bureau chief over in landfill. But we always could call upon him if we need his expertise, which we always do. So we have that. We are trained in remediation and redevelopment. So we get it. We understand how the economics has to work so that you could get a brownfields project to be successful and get it to the finish line. So we understand that. So that's what our office is all about. Next slide. So let me talk a little about the designation of a BDA and what we bring to the table. So every BDA is assigned a single point of contact, which we call a BDA project manager. The BDA project manager works with the municipality on all matters of remediation and redevelopment. The BDA manager is responsible for coordinating all meetings with the stakeholders. We take the lead on that. We run interference with our internally as well as our external partners on all matters related to BDAs. And what I mean about that, I'll talk about that a little more on the next slide. We work closely with the municipalities, the redeveloper, and to identify and leverage funding. And I'll talk about it a little more on the next slide. We also work to expedite reviews, permits, approvals, and sometimes this gets us in trouble because we ruffle some folks' feathers, we make them uncomfortable, but it's okay because at the end of the day, we get things done and everybody's happy. We also, how should I say this? We not only bring the right folks to the table, but we also bring the right issues to the table. So that's important. And we work very closely with LSRPs on remediation, redevelopment of approvals and decisions. Let me get to the next slide. So here it is, the values and benefits of a BDA designation. And I think this is probably the most important. This is the most important slide. A BDA designation is not only working to get the remediation redevelopment done, but it's a partnership. Our office is at the table with the municipalities or the redevelopment. And we're not only there with a big stick as a regulator, but we're the partners. We want to work through the issues. We want to help you achieve your missions for whatever your city has. We're there to give you input, and we are very accessible. We help you leverage and identify funding. Now, we know we have the HDSRF in our office, which is really good. But that's not the only funding sources out there. We also have the EPA has a lot of brownfields funding. So we bring that to the table. We explain to them what are the grants that are out there with EPA, our partners. And if we have to sit down and bring our EPA partners to the table, we do that. Because funding is very, very important to the success of the project. We also have fundings from our sister agency, EDA. So we also bring that to the table. And if we need to bring the folks from EDA to the table, we also would do that. EDA has a lot of funding, brownfield grants, as well as incentive brownfield programs that are new and available to the municipality or the redeveloper. We also have funding from New Jersey Redevelopment Authority. And in our office, we have somebody who sits on the board of the New Jersey Redevelopment Authority. So again, these are other funding sources we could bring or other resources we could bring to the project. We also have iBank funding. And we have projects in our office that we work with our iBank. So we have the relationship with iBank, and their funding is very strong. They even have a forgiveness for some of the programs. But these are the programs, these are the resources we could bring together. We also have Green Acres funding that we could leverage we could help the municipality leverage Green Acres funding. Our office has worked on a number of projects that involve Green Acres. So we have those researchers. So we have those relationships that we build with these other agencies or other departments, other bureaus within the department that we could help and bring to the table. And again, the private funding. We could be at the table with the redeveloper of the municipality to give them the assurance that they need that this brownfield project is for real, and it has the backing and the support and the partnership of our office. And lastly, and I'll share it because this is kind of unique. I was working on a project in Perth Amboy, actually, and the project was in bankruptcy. So I was able to come to the table with a regulatory background. So what I did there is that when the project was in bankruptcy, I reached out to a DAG and I said, listen, this project's in bankruptcy. I want us to file a claim. They were responsible for the contamination. So let's find a claim in the settlement so we could leverage some of the fund. Long story short, our DAG put a claim in. We were able to leverage $14 million set aside from the bankruptcy. And not only were we able to leverage it, DEP was named the custodian of that fund, and our office was the one who managed that. So, as a long story short, I was put in charge of the $14 million to make sure it was used to clean up the site. I met with a couple of developers. I told them about the $14 million that we were able to secure, and we are responsible for managing it. And when I told the developer that, he ran off to his bank to get funding to leverage private equity to take on the remediation redeveloper. And then a couple of weeks later, he called me up and he told me, listen, my lender, who is Goldman Sachs, would like to meet with you. So I go, what's up with that? Are they going to be giving me a job? So he said, no, they want to meet with me so we could see, if this is for real. They flew their folks up from Houston. They met with me and my director. I gave them the assurance that this is a partnership. I do have custodial rights over the money, and whoever clean up the site, the money will be made available to them to use to clean up the site. A couple of weeks later, I get a call from the developer. He told me, listen, not only do we secure the funding, Tony, but Goldman Sachs wants to be a partner in the program, on the project. And about a year or two later, the project was remediated and redeveloped into 3 warehouses in Perth Amboy with over 1 million square feet. I think it secured, I think it brought in about close to 3,000 jobs and $1 million in rateables. So that's one of our successes we have. So those are the type of things we do. In our office, we try to leverage funding from every source possible. The next thing we talk about is technical. We at the table as a partner, we can't give you approvals, but we'll give you input and guidance. And we'll basically tell you, this is not, you can't do this. This is what you could do. So we're at the table as a partner to let everybody know what can be done and what technical guidance we could give. Interference. What I mean by that, there's always hookups in projects. Something don't work, something is not moving as smooth as it should. Some permit is not getting, issued as quickly as it should. Some reviews are not taking place as quickly as it can. This is the way I run interference. And I do it also on the federal and on the state side as well as the federal side, or just about with anybody else. I make that phone call. I bug you. I plead with you. I even make promises that I probably can't even keep. But we get it done. We get the reviews done. We get the permits. Sometimes I ruffle feathers. I hurt feelings. I make people uncomfortable. But at the end of the day, what I learned is that once I get it done, we get the project done, everybody's happy. Everybody's forgiven. And then I tell them I'll see you next time again. I work closely with LSRPs and redeveloper, or just about anybody who comes to the table, whoever the stakeholders. I work closely with them, as well as the lenders. This is something we do. This is something we do as a BDA project manager because we realize that we have to be involved in the process. So we always at the table, and we really to work closely with you. The next thing that we try to do is we try to expedite reviews. And I'm good at that because I won't go away until you give me what I want. And a lot of folks in the office is like that. And this is what I find is most valuable to the LSRP. Because the LSRP, they just have to wait. If they tell them it's going to take 6 months to get a permit, they don't know what to do. They just wait. But they'll give me a call and say, Tony, we have money on the line. We have money on the street. We have skin in the game. We just can't wait 9 months to a year to get a permit. So again, we have a good relationship. Our office have an excellent relationship with the permit folks. And we go over, they sit right next to us. We go over and we talk to them and see what we could do. And oftentimes, 9 out of 10 times, we're able to get our way. They are actually able to understand what we're trying to accomplish here. And again, like I said, we ruffle feathers. We make folks feel uncomfortable. But when we get it done, everybody's happy. And we're ready to start over again. So those are the things we do. The last thing I want to talk about is identifying and bringing the right folks to the table. And I think I talked about it already. Again, not only are we going to identify who to bring to the table, but actually we're going to identify the important issues too, or the right issues. Again, it's hard to deal with, and I understand that it's hard to deal with the folks from the outside dealing with folks internally. I understand that because, everybody's real busy. But getting the right people to the table, it goes a long way. But when you bring the right folks, if it's land use, if it's somebody from air, if it's somebody from environmental justice, whatever the case may be, we work hard. This is what we do. This is what a BDA project manager do. Get the right folks to the table so that we could get the right, we could determine what's next, what is required, what's holding up the project, and what we got to do to get it done. So these are some of the things we do, and these are the values and the benefit, I think, of BDA. And if we could, and if the project manager is effective, and like I said, you got somebody to call. As a BDA designator, you got somebody to call. So once they reach out to me, a lot of times, what actually happen is that not only do I address the issues in the BDA, but sometimes if the project's outside the BDA, I have no problem giving them input because it's all about relationship building. Let me go to the next slide. So Frank is giving me the motion to like speed it up. So the interest of time, we kind of covered these sites already, so I'm not going to go into them. So at this point in time, my contact information is there, and I'll turn it back over to Frank. Okay, thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Tony. You can tell Tony's a little passionate about his brownfield development areas, and he's ruffled a few feathers within DEP to accomplish some of these success stories that he showed. So let's get it over to Rachel Stopper and Jamila Harris.
Hello. My name is Rachel Stopper, and I'm here with Jamila Harris. And as you probably know, we're from the Brownfields office. And today, we're going to go over the application for BDA designation for 2023 to 2024. So as you may know, applications for new BDA designations are being accepted through April 30th. And these are the documents that we're going to go over today. There's an application form, the application guidance, and specific application templates. All of these documents can be found online, but we're also going to go over them with you today. Below is another project that I will discuss extremely briefly. So this is in the Rahway Brownfield development area. This is the former Hamilton Laundry Facility. There were some chlorinated solvents in the soil and the groundwater, and the HDSRF paid for an innovative technology remediation, and the site is now the Hamilton Stage for Performing Arts. You heard a bunch of these benefits today, but I'll go over them again very briefly. So the HDSRF is a great program, whether or not you have the BDA designation. However, if you do have the BDA designation, there are benefits. So, for example, if you do not have the designation and you're a public entity applying for HDSRF, you're eligible for up to $3 million a year. And that includes 100% of your preliminary assessment, site investigation, and remedial investigation, and up to 75% of the remedial action. And that remedial action is based on very specific end-use redevelopments. However, if you have the BDA designation, you're eligible for up to $5 million a year, also 100% of the PA, SI, and RI, and up to 75% of the RA, and you are not limited by any kind of end use. Again, you have a point of contact in the Brownfields office, so you have someone here who would be your BDA manager, and they can talk to the HDSRF coordinator and talk about the projects that you have, and we can maybe make an early determination about eligibility. Something else that is a benefit of being in the BDA is ownership is not required for the preliminary assessment, site investigation, and remedial investigation phases of work. If you do not have the designation, you need to demonstrate an ownership interest or ownership. I do want to say, for the remedial action phase of work, if you have the for the remedial action phase of work, if you have the BDA designation, a lien does go on the property for the cost of the grant. When the property is purchased by the public entity that spent the HDSRF funding, that lien is taken off. This is only related to the remedial action phase, not the preliminary assessment, site investigation, or remedial investigation phase. And that just keeps public ownership within our brownfield development areas. And finally, this has been said several times, there's no limitation for the end use type for a remedial action grant if you have the BDA designation. That is unlike if you do not have the designation, you are limited by affordable housing, recreation conservation, and renewable energy. All right, so now we are going to get into the BDA designation application documents. Now, if you came to our earlier in-person outreach sessions, you will see that this document looks extremely different, and maybe even if you printed out our applications off our website a long time ago, this looks extremely different. something that we were able to do based on input from our outreach sessions. I think this was from one of our Highlands outreach sessions. Is we were asked if we could make the applications fillable online, and we were able to do that. However, in order to do so, we had to change the format. None of the content of the application has changed. The format just looks very different. And so we are going to go over the new format, and all of these documents that we're going over today are on our website. Okay, so the first document is the form, and you can see it is only one page where it used to be many pages. You will see that there's an orange section on the very top and with many attachments. So those attachments are going to be the focus of our presentation today because it is those attachments that make up the BDA application. Okay, and so, and right below the orange section, you have section 1 and section 2, which is just basic information, the applicant information. And the applicant must be a public entity authorized to exercise redevelopment powers pursuant to the local redevelopment and housing law. However, you can have a co-applicant, and that co-applicant does not need to be that public entity. For example, the co-applicant could be a nonprofit. If you do have an applicant and a co-applicant, you do need to submit 2 of these pages. So we have the information for both of the applicants. And then section 2 is the project information, where you give us the name of the BDA and you clearly state the boundaries and some other information. And now we are going to go into the guidance document, and we highly recommend that when you are filling out the application, filling out and creating those attachments, that you have the guidance document with you.
Thank you, Rachel. So we're going to go over the application guidance document. So we designed this guidance document for you to have as a complement to the application. We suggest when you're going through the application and filling it out that you print the guidance document and have it handy. And I know we're a little short on time, so I'm just going to run through this really briefly. Some of the criteria that we are looking for when we receive your application in our office. So some of the selection criteria include quality and completeness of your BDA application. Like any other application that you fill out, if it's incomplete, it will not be considered as a candidate. We want to know the extent to which the proposed boundaries for your BDA are consistent with the boundaries of a community or neighborhood rather than properties that are just next to each other. We also want to know the extent to which your proposed BDA is consistent with smart growth principles. We provide a link there for Smart Growth America for you to check out. We want to know the description of any redevelopment planning efforts for your proposed BDA. And then we want documents that are going to support the implementation of those redevelopment planning efforts. As you've heard throughout the presentation, a level of community involvement in the BDA is where we've seen most of our successes. So we would like you to tell us the level of community involvement that you're going to have in your proposed BDA. And we also want to know the anticipated benefits to the community, public health, and the environment from your proposed BDA. There's also a note that applicants that are not selected in this round can receive feedback, and they can find out what they need to do to have their application ready to be accepted in the next round.
All right, thank you, Jamila. Next, we're going to go over the Memorandum of Understanding, also known as the MOU. So the MOU represents the very last step of the BDA designation. For example, if you are designated as a Brownfield development area, you will be asked to execute the MOU. And the MOU governs the partnership formed between the steering committee, the host municipality, and the DEP. And it's going to memorialize and outline the responsibilities and obligations of those 3 parties. The MOU will need to be renewed every 2 years, and that renewal will be based on the BDA manager's opinion that there has been progress within the Brownfield development area. So next, who can apply? So applications are submitted by the applicant on behalf of the steering committee, and the applicant must be a public entity authorized to exercise redevelopment powers pursuant to the local redevelopment and housing law. So that can be, a town, county redevelopment agency. Next are the steering committees. So the steering committees they represent those individuals or people or organizations who are involved with the BDA, who may be affected by the BDA, and those who want to be involved in the process. So it really can be anyone. You can have municipalities, counties, housing authorities. You can have neighborhood residents, property owners, responsible parties, developers. Something that we do ask is that all applications include an ordinance or resolution of support from the host municipality to partner with the steering committee and adhere to the terms of the MOU. Okay, and next, applications opened last October, and they must be received by April 30th. Unlike in the past, we are accepting these applications electronically this time, and you can email them to bdaapp@dep.nj.gov. And also, that is the email where you can email us at any time, and you can email us anytime with any questions you have regarding the BDA application or process, and we will respond to you.
I'm going to quickly run through some of the guidelines of the application section by section. Section 1 is the obvious, it's the applicant information. The only thing to note in this section, if there's more than one applicant, we want to see more than one set of contact information for each applicant. Section 2 is the project information. So this project information section is going to be broken into 3 different parts. The first part is going to be your project boundaries. It's where you tell us where your proposed BDA will be. We need very descriptive language here. We have a statement, example sentence, a neighborhood bounded by River W, Highway X, Y Street, the Z railway line containing residential, commercial, and light industrial uses. The proposed BDA includes 6 brownfield sites, which the steering committee proposes should be remediated and reused consistent with an overall community vision for the area. And you've heard throughout our presentations how important it is to have that community vision. But the important thing to note about this section is you want you to tell us the where and the why. We want to know why you selected this area for your proposed BDA. So that's an important item for you to note in section 1. The next section, section 2, is list your brownfield sites with the proposed BDA. It's important to note that we have this information available as attachment A for you, so we have it in digital form, so it's easier for you to fill out if that's your choice. In this section, it's important to stay consistent with how you list your brownfield sites. So for example, if you have a brownfield site that you call Harris Factory, we want you to continue that name throughout the application. It's kind of confusing if it's Harris Factory in one section and 123 Main Street in another section. So we want you to fill out the information to be very complete and accurate in how you name it. Important to note also in section 2 is that we want to know the parcels, we want to know the size and the site and ownership information. Section 3 of your project information is going to be a scaled map or photo. So you have a choice here. It can be a map or it can be a photo. But this map or photo, we want you to show us the boundaries of your entire proposed BDA, as well as the individual site boundaries for each of your brownfield sites that you've listed in section 2. We want them to be clearly identified so we can see where they are, and we want the naming to be consistent. We also want you to identify some prominent physical features in this section: streets, railroads, and water bodies. So as you can see, going throughout the application, it's very important that you pay attention to how things are labeled and how things are listed in order to submit to us a complete, thorough application.
That's working. Thank you, Jamila. Next is section 3, the baseline information sheet for brownfield sites. This is associated with attachment C, which we do have a template on the website for you to use. And this attachment is the baseline information sheet for BDAs and will include basic site and parcel information. It'll include information like the location, the address, acreage. If you were to do a site visit, what are the site conditions? Is the site ownership and operational history known? And you can find that information, maybe your local tax office, you can go to Data Miner, or maybe even perform an OPRA request. And for each site within the BDA, let's say you are proposing 10 sites, we would need 1 sheet for each site, so 10 baseline information data sheets for 10 BDA sites. Next is Section 4, the steering committee. This is associated with attachment D, which we also have a template for on our website for you to use. And this is just a basic list of the members of the steering committee and their contact information. And something else we're going to ask for is a letter of interest from each of those steering committee members that you list on attachment D. And that letter of interest should demonstrate their support and their interest in the Brownfield development area.
So the next section is going to be your steering committee support section. And as you've heard throughout our previous presentations, these projects don't occur without a strong steering committee. So if you fill out your application, it's good to think of it as your story. We want the story of your proposed BDA. So now that you told us where it is, why you selected it, who you selected as your steering committee, we want to know how your steering committee is going to be supported. So in this section, we want a brief description on how you formed your steering committee, how it was created. We also want an ordinance or resolution of support from the municipal governing body for your BDA project. And we want another ordinance. So there's two ordinances here. We want another ordinance or resolution that indicates that the municipality is willing to enter into an MOU, like Rachel discussed, with the DEP and the steering committee. So these ordinances and resolutions are a requirement. We also want letters of support from any local government stakeholders. It's going to give more weight to your application. And we also want these letters to be unique. We want them to be unique and explicit to the level of support for the proposed project and the steering committee. Also, any letters of support from Brownfield property owners or any environmental commissions are encouraged to be included in your application. Next section is going to be your community overview. So if you told us where it is, you told us about the steering committee, how they're going to be supported, and now we want to know a little bit about the community where your BDA is going to be. So I'm just going to quickly just name these off. But as you fill out your application and submit this information to us, it's important to note the order in which these things are listed. So we would like a narrative description for your proposed BDA under the following headings. We want justification for your BDA boundaries. We want some area population and general demographic info, some housing, economic activity, and public asset information, any local planning designations, any economic development designations, state planning areas, transportation infrastructure, recreation and open space inventory. And then the final thing is we want to know what you feel are your obstacles to redevelopment.
Thank you, Jamila. And finally is Section 7, redevelopment vision and community benefits. And this is where you're going to discuss your redevelopment plans for the Brownfield development area and also how those plans will benefit the community. We'd like you to describe how the objectives within the Brownfield development area are consistent with SMART growth principles. And we do have a link there to SMART Growth America. We also want to ask you about your planning and your redevelopment planning to date, and we're really looking for a community vision. And also, just like Jamila just described, that we need a narrative with certain headings, we also need a narrative with the following headings: direct and indirect environmental benefits, aesthetic benefits, community quality of life benefits, public health benefits, economic benefits, and of course describe the planned end use within the boundaries of the Brownfield development area.
So we're just going to quickly run through the attachments that we spoke about as we went through the application. This attachment A is assigned to Section 2 under the project information. It's available for you online. It's some of the information that we're looking for about the BDA. It's going to be your site list. And it's important to know all of the fields and have them filled out completely when you submit your application.
All right, thank you, Jamila. And this is attachment C. This is the baseline property data sheet that I discussed earlier. This might look very different from what you've known if you've applied for BDA designations before. And again, this is that parcel information, property information, ownership, operation, physical description. If you know the PI number or if there's any known or suspected contamination, we're going to ask you to fill this out to the best of your ability. And again, this is one per BDA site within the Brownfield development area. So if you have five sites that you're proposing for your brownfield development area, we would need 5 of these baseline information sheets. And this is attachment D. This is, again, the steering committee list. This is where you're going to list the names of the individuals on your steering committee. You are only required to have the host municipality and the applicant on your steering committee, but we do encourage a diverse steering committee, and you can include additional pages as necessary. These are some acronyms that we used in today's presentation. We hope this is helpful for you. And are there any questions?
Thank you, Rachel. Thank you, Jamila. Do we have any questions how many questions do we have from our virtual audience? I know we have one in our, let's go to our partners at EDA. Barbara Vadney, would you ask your question?
Thank you very much for that presentation. I just had a question. Is it going to be open up again, or is this a one-time application? You have any sense of that, or will it be every year? Or
Yeah, I think that's a question for Frank.
okay.
And that's a question for my management. So Barbara will have to get back to you on that one. So I don't know the answer. I know what I would like to do, but I have to get approval up the chain of command. I would love as many brownfield development areas as possible. I'm almost excited as Tony is about the program. No, Shanine, I'm going to walk this over to you because our online audience wants to hear your wisdom too. We are actively thinking about that now. We've had some requests. I just had a conversation with the Urban Mayors Association about that exact request. So will you join us, Shanine and Terry, in Shanine? Good to be boss, huh, Terry? So I think the answer is yes. Let's have a conversation with between our two agencies and with some of the organizations that have made that request to us.
We actually do have one online question. Mimi Marcus from NJIT, if you want to unmute yourself and ask your question.
There's a question from Felix Zamora I'm seeing. Jamila?
Yes. Hi. While doing research on brownfields, I look into the mapping and look into the information for ownership, and I noticed that one of the requirements is to determine land ownership. So, how do municipalities can get access to that information?
I think I understand your question. Are you asking about ownership requirements for funding?
Correct.
Okay, so for HDSRF, I know that I said ownership, but if you're familiar with the statute, ownership is very flexible. So ownership can be demonstrated in many ways. So it can be outright ownership, for example, a deed. You might have acquired the property through tax delinquency, so maybe you have a tax sale certificate, and I would say a lot of the HDSRF applications that we have, that is how they demonstrate ownership. The municipality may have foreclosed on the property, and there may be foreclosure documentation. And there's another pathway where you can simply mention in a municipal resolution that you plan to voluntarily acquire the property in the future for the purpose of redevelopment. And we will accept that as ownership for early phases of HDSRF work.
And Rachel, I guess I would also add we have grants to nonprofits as well for the investigation phases.
That is correct. If you are a nonprofit, many of the requirements for nonprofits are almost the same for public entity, preliminary assessment, site investigation, and remedial investigation. And so if you are a nonprofit, we do have HDSRF funding available for 100%. Preliminary assessment, site investigation, and remedial investigation. However, you do need to demonstrate that commitment to redevelopment. Did I answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
We have a
You're welcome.
question in the audience from our friend Jeffrey Enton.
Thanks. Rachel, for a nonprofit to be eligible, I guess this is outside of the BDA question. Does a nonprofit have to own the property, or can the nonprofit have a nexus to the property in some way, like an agreement to acquire it later, or how does it work with the municipality? What is the like? I'm thinking of a property that has a tax lien, but nobody owns it because nobody wants to close on it.
If a nonprofit has acquired the tax lien, that would be okay. That would count as ownership.
Does a nonprofit have to acquire the tax lien to be eligible for a site that it doesn't own? Or
If there's maybe an agreement that the nonprofit would acquire it at a later time, that might be something that we would accept.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. We have a question from Laura Brinkerhoff, a LSRP from our early days at BEDAs, huh?
Very early days. I have a question for Rachel. We spoke a little bit about the project manager on the Perth Amboy site, and I would like a little more information on what the DEP considers a project manager. Is it someone employed by the municipality? Can it be a private entity? And how is that person compensated? Is that later part of the funding that comes out under the BDA program, or is it directly paid by the municipality? Just general information on the project manager would be helpful.
I think Tony might answer this.
Yeah, this is Joe. I can answer it as well.
Go ahead, Joe.
Okay, with regards to Perth Amboy, Tony Finley is the designated OBRR project manager for all the sites within the BDA. And that cost is borne by the department. So when you become a BDA, we don't directly pay for Tony's services. It's one of the benefits that comes with BDA membership. Now, in the case of Perth Amboy, it's a unique setup in that the BDA itself is managed by me, and I'm an environmental consultant. And I'm under contract to each of the developers that are active within the BDA in any given year. So the members are, let's say, half a dozen developers for calendar year 2023, and then automatically the state of New Jersey and the city's redevelopment agency are members as well. We collect dues, and that pays for the coordination of the BDA. But that's for paying for me to manage the process. All the stuff that Tony does within the department is paid for by the department. It doesn't get assessed against the BDA at all. Does that answer your question?
Laura said it did. Thank you, Joe.
And maybe a little more clarification, the HCSRF wouldn't pay the BDA project manager.
And Laura, go ahead, Joe.
No, I was just agreeing with Rachel. So no, that's exactly right.
To kind of further the thinking, we're very lucky to have Joe Hochreiter managing the steering committee for Perth Amboy. That is has provided a lot of quick responses and very strategic efforts, right, on getting these pretty complicated projects done. Many of our steering committees are chaired by volunteers from Sometimes it's municipal officials, sometimes it's a nonprofit organization. So that's obviously a demanding position, being steering committee chair. But normally there's interested parties at the municipal level or local nonprofit level to chair or co-chair steering committees. But it is a lot. It is a lot of work if it's done right. Questions from our online audience? No. Any questions on our Trenton audience? I would like to get the opportunity to introduce some folks. First, Bill Linder and Lauren Drum, who previously with the department, and we thank them for their service. And Bill and Lawrence did a lot of work in Perth Amboy, and of course Bill for the program for many years. So thank you for your service. We have some new members of the Office of Brownfield and Community Revitalization. We have Josephine O'Grady, who is a part-time employee at our office and is getting her master's degree from the Rutgers Blaustein School. So we're really happy to have Josephine's talents. Next to Josephine is Doug Leung. Doug is also a master's student at the Rutgers Blaustein School and a GIS wizard and a Army serviceman for like 6 years. So thank you not only for working for us, but for serving the nation, Doug. And next to Doug is Emily Perez. Emily comes to us from the within the program formerly from the Bureau of Inspection Review. So we're really happy to have Emily on board to help us with managing cases and supporting our HDSRF program. Do we have any other questions in our audience? Are we going to give people back some time today? How nice is that?
Wow, I can't believe it.
I don't think people would cede me or you any more time, Tony, if they had the choice. But so I'm going to wrap it up. I want to thank our virtual audience, and I want to thank our Trenton audience. We expect to have the next Brownfield Brownfield Quarterly Roundtable probably in later March or April. So it's going to come up pretty quickly because we want to make sure that we are not only assisting potential new Brownfield development area designated communities, but also some of our existing Brownfield development area communities, which we are going to allow to modify their Brownfield development area. And we will email the mailing list of workshops that I'm expecting to have a conversation immediately after we sign off with my EPA friends about future workshops that'll come shortly. Thank you again, everybody, for attending the quarterly Brownfields Roundtable, and I'm going to sign off. And thank you to Tyrone and Anthony behind the scenes and all the work they do. Thank you.